Welcome to another session of Stelmo's Rants and Raves. I'm Stelmo. Let's just jump right into this. So I'm seeing there's an article. It's on Rumble, but it's originally from Fox News, and it's from Saturday in America. And the headline says, House Speaker Johnson details GOP accomplishments. Mr. Speaker, I realize it's getting near election time, so it's time to start the gaslighting again. If ever there has been an ineffective Congress, it's been this one. Mr. Speaker, this Congress could have passed legislation which would then have prevented these judges from doing these nationwide injunctions, but you sat on that and you didn't do it. And why didn't it happen? Well, because you didn't want to see that. You know, I was kind of upset when President Trump announced he was supporting Mike Johnson for Speaker, because, you know, personally, I have a problem when people lie to me. And, you know, Mike Johnson's a liar. You know, his own caucus called him out on his lies, and he promised he'd never do it again, and yet he did it again. And what was he doing? He was taking and adding deep state pork to appropriation bills right at the last minute so that his caucus couldn't see what was there. And he was telling them all that this is, you know, what we negotiated, and this is what was put together. And it's only after they would vote for it at the last minute that they would find the deception. And unfortunately, we have two parties right now that are gaslighting the American public. This is not going to play out well. I don't think it's going to play out well for a lot of these politicians. And I don't mean they're just going to lose elections. I see, look what's happening in Newark, just warming up now. You know, as the Republicans as Donald Trump works on trying to fix our election system, and he's really the only one at it. Because, again, Congress could do so many things in this, and they're just not doing it. Look, they can't even pass the Save America Act. Now, part of the problem, too, is in the Senate, they had to tack in some trans nonsense to a bill, and then they wonder why conservatives are objecting to it. You know, if they would just go back and start doing simple, maybe 2-3 page clean bills one at a time, I think things would work better in this country. But they don't want to do that because they want to sneak in all that pork, because all that part of that pork is going to come back, and some of it's going to go certainly for their re-election efforts, but also a lot of it gets funneled into how shall we say, items for their personal enjoyment. Let's just put it that way. And is this good? No, this is not good. You know, we're going to be facing a financial crisis here very, 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 very shortly. Because in just a few short years, the spending of this country has gone through the roof. And now we find out why. Most of it's being stolen. So the middle class, the backbone of this country, is finding it increasingly harder and harder to exist and to pay their bills and to have food on the table. It's not going to bode well. It's not going to bode well because they're not addressing the issues. Oh, they say they are. Now, I want to say one thing to Johnson's credit, and that is there's a sub-headline here that reads, Mike Johnson says the House will send this Senate to Save America Act in the reconciliation bill. Okay, that's the way to do it. Probably won't pass because you got these rhino senators up there who don't want to save America. And perhaps if the Republicans would couch it in that language, perhaps they would find that maybe some people are changing their minds and voting for it. Trust me, if the shoe was on the other foot, the Democrat Socialist Party of America would definitely do that. But the GOP, they just stand mute, and they say, keep voting for us. And, you know, right now the problem is they're really the only, in my opinion at least, the only option that voters have is in the Republican primaries. You can't, how can anybody vote Democrat when you know the things that they're saying they're going to do? And, you know, a socialist revolution should absolutely terrify every sitting Republican. And a lot of us conservatives out here in the real world, because history shows us what happens when these socialists consolidate their power. And I think they're going to get closer and closer to being able to accomplish that. Why? Because our economy is in shambles. Inflation is going through the roof. No, don't buy that 3.8%. You know, look, one thing you cannot get away with is lying to the people about the economy. They live the economy. They're filling up their vehicles with fuel. They're going to the grocery stores and shopping. They're looking at the huge increases in their insurance bills. Cars, I mean, new cars, forget about it. Pretty soon people are going to have to take out 30-year car loans because that's going to be the only way that some people can afford a car. Do you think that system is going to work very long? I don't know. I don't think it is. Now, do I know the solution? Not at this point. I don't. You know, it's just been too much spending. Politicians will never be interested in doing something that they perceive might turn the electorate against them. You know, they're too worried about getting reelected. And they certainly know that if they go to fix Social Security or any of the other problems that we had, that they may not be there come re-election time. And so nothing happens. Everybody says, or all these politicians say, you can put video clips together, probably and play them for an hour or two of them saying that what we're doing is unsustainable. Yeah, they all say unsustainable, but yet they keep doing it. And when they do that, all they're doing is making the reckoning that much more significant. You know, poor people are hurting. You know, in these inner cities, look out this summer. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope come fall, when the cool weather starts setting in, I hope I can come back on camera and say, you know what, I was really wrong. Nothing really happened this summer. But I don't believe that. You see, the Democrat Socialist Party of America knows it's now or never for them. They have to find a way to take back the reins of government. And when they do, that's it. That's it. Because they're not going to give up power again. You see, one of the problems that the Democrat Socialists of America have is most of them have egos almost the size of the moon. And, you know, take Barack Obama. Barack Obama could not process in his mind any chance that Donald Trump could ever have to be president. See, the Democrats, they live in their own bubble. and they listen to each other spew the nonsense back and forth amongst themselves. But they're not going out there and listening to the public. And when the public does try to impose their concerns upon them, a lot of them just walk away. And in many cases, some of these people get elected, which makes you wonder, what is up with that? Well, you see, I was a poll watcher when I was young, quite a few elections, both local elections, state and federal elections. And, I became familiar with the old voting machines, and I've never heard anyone explain exactly why we got rid of those very reliable, accurate machines. Those machines were really hard to tamper with. And if there were poll challengers there, I'm going to say it would be virtually impossible. And so they did away with something that was really good, and they went to something that's, well, there are all these problems now. But that was all by design. And now they know that they got to figure out a way to get all three branches, and that is it for this country. I mean, look, let's just take Biden. Once he got elected, what was one of the first things he did? One of the first things he did was get $1 trillion bill and get it passed. Pork spending everywhere. And we know now a lot of it was stolen. But it all went on the credit card, the national credit card. Donald Trump wants interest rates to come down. And maybe the Fed will lower their interest rate. But the question everyone has to answer is this. Are the purchasers of our debt, are they going to be willing to accept an interest rate that is far below the rate of inflation? There's no reason for them to do that. I suspect, yes, some of them will do that. Who will do that? You'll see a lot of like state pension funds and stuff like that. In other words, government entities. They want to try to perpetuate their fraud as long as they can. But it's going to come to an end because, the spending is just so out of control. And so, Mr. Johnson, I certainly do hope that the Republicans retain the House and Senate. But nothing will surprise me at this point because there are so many more things that the House could have done, easy things to do, that have wide support in the public, and it hasn't happened. And we'll watch and see, does the Save America Act ever get passed? I don't think so. But will we ever hear Republicans calling out these rhinos and saying they do not want to save America? That couching it in that language is merely, it's the fair play. It's the thing that their opposition would gladly do if they had or they were in that position. They're not in that position, fortunately. Hopefully they never get there. I'm old, so I don't know how much longer the good Lord will give me, but I feel sorry for young people today. We're leaving them in America in shambles. It really is. The infrastructure across this country is crumbling. And why? Because the money we don't have that we're borrowing is not going to where it needs to go. And I don't see anybody in the House or Senate willing to move to fix that problem. And because they're not going to fix that problem, I just think that we're going to be seeing more and more and more civil disobedience. And it's just not going to bode well. But it is what it is. We got to live with it. And with that, y'all have a great day. Stay safe. Crazy world. Bye-bye.